The Fermi paradox has become a very popular subject in recent decades. Tons of skeptics and pseudo-skeptics use it to prove that aliens are not visiting us on Earth. However, it is misunderstood and misrepresented. Enrico Fermi was a physicist working in the US. One day over lunch, in 1950, he wanted to show that aliens don't visit us, by making a few calculations. He estimated the number of stars in the galaxy and figured that they could all be visited within 10 million years at sublight speed. Considering that the galaxy is billions of years old, it should have been done already. So where is everyone? Of course, these casual calculations have been so rehashed and this story so retold, that we don't really know exactly how the conversation actually went and what, if anything, Fermi was trying to prove. Skeptics who use the Fermi paradox assume that a probe from a distant planet would arrive to Earth with speakers blaring a fanfare, head to Washington, D.C. and land on the White House lawn screaming, "Take me to your leader." A total disregard of alien politics, if you ask me. They might rather go to Moscow or Beijing, or maybe they like the cold and would go to Reykjavik. Such a probe might have come by last week without announcing itself. Or 10 years ago. Or 10,000 years ago. Skeptics say no, because they would have left a trace of their passage. Right. Why? And if it was 10,000 years ago, or 10 million years ago, how would you even find such a trace? And if it was in orbit yesterday and left, how would we know? A telescope would have to have spotted it and photographed its passage. Then someone would have to be interested in it. Most people who would observe it would simply think it's a satellite and proceed to ignore it. The person would then have to calculate its orbit and compare it to the orbit of all known satellites. Then try to find out if it's some spy satellite. In other words, they would have to be extremely interested in the object to try and find out what it was. Skeptics also assume that every single UFO sighting must be explained through natural phenomenon, misidentification, hoax, alcohol, drugs, and swamp gas. Then they go on to make up theories for why no one has ever visited us, the dark forest, the great filter, and others. However, the probability of a civilization doing anything like what is suggested in the Fermi paradox seems so far-fetched when you actually think of it. Proponents of the Fermi paradox seem to accept the idea that a civilization would use von Neumann probes. The idea behind a von Neumann probe is that you build a probe out of materials that are easy to find. You send this probe out to a star system. It finds a suitable moon or planet or asteroid, mines it for the same materials, and builds a duplicate of itself. This duplicate is then sent to another star system and so on. You start with one and end up with millions. They don't have to be fast, they have all the time in the world. So let's take a look at some of the problems with this idea. Size. Considering that the probe would have to mine for materials, refine them and transform them, it would require a lot of equipment. That would make it a rather large probe. And it would multiply the possibilities of something going wrong. If even one single part can't be reproduced adequately, the whole thing falls apart. The first probe sent would already have a fair chance of not being able to replicate and therefore end the whole mission right there and then. Minerals. It's totally ludicrous to think that the probe would land on some rock and find all the materials it needs readily available. The reality is that the probe would probably have to make several trips to different rocks to find all it needs and come back to assemble its clone. Once again, multiplying the chances of something going wrong. Where are all the stars? This is what we think the Milky Way galaxy looks like. When I was young, it was thought to look similar to this. For some reason, a lot of people think this is an actual photograph. It would take a ship hundreds of thousands of years to get to that point and take a picture. All we know for sure, all the stars we know for a fact exist are in this tiny area. The rest is a guesstimate. Even with much better telescopes, it would still be impossible to view the whole thing from here. Even if you could see in detail all the way to that brick in the center, it wouldn't be possible to see the other side. So how would the probes know where to go? Since we can't see all the stars, it's not like we can send a map or an itinerary. Assuming all replications of the probes work 100% every time, here's what would happen. We send the first probe, let's call it 1, to the nearest star. It replicates, let's call that one A, and sends it on its merry way. When it finishes its mission, it moves on to another star, where it will repeat the same strategy. It creates a duplicate, let's call it 2. Where does it send it? It knows only a few things. Where it has gone. Where it has sent A. So it will send 2 to another destination. And knows where it has gone. From where 1 has sent it. So it sends B to another destination. The next step already becomes a lot more complicated. 1 knows where it has gone. Where it has sent A. Where it has sent 2. 2 knows where it has gone. Where 1 has been until the creation of 2. Where 1 has sent A. So, as you can see, you are already running the risk of having at least 2 probes visiting the same star system. The same situation applies to the lettered probes. The more you advance, the more you will find that some star systems will be visited thousands of times, while other will never be visited at all. Technological advances. One of the main problems is that once the original probe is sent, the planet's technology will continue to advance. The 2 Voyager probes we have sent will eventually arrive to other star systems. But this will take tens of thousands of years. By the time they arrive, well-established, thousands of years old human colonies will probably be waiting for them. It would be the same for the von Neumann probes. Even if they were sent by AIs having taken over a civilization, even these AIs would develop better, faster technology, and decide not to wait so long. Xenophobes. Let's assume a xenophobic alien species. They want to be alone in the galaxy, but don't want to go themselves to the stars. Their probes might carry the means to sterilize alien organisms. For this civilization, speed would not be very important. Of course, over 10 million years, they would have ample time to grow out of their xenophobic tendencies or to be destroyed themselves through one of a myriad of scenarios. But let's assume they would send a self-replicating probe anyway. And let's assume they've seen this video and they know the risks. What could they do? Spare parts. They could start by making a much bigger probe carrying spare parts. Or where every part would be doubled and tripled. Like in Rendezvous with Rama, the Ramans do everything in threes. The odds of a part not functioning are important. The odds of a double not functioning are much smaller. The odds of a triplicate not functioning are near infinitesimal. So it's a big, slow probe with lots of extra parts. How do you resolve navigation? If it were me, and in this video, it is me, I would add small communication satellites. Once the probe arrives at a star system, it launches an array of satellites around the star. These satellites announce a message, probe 1 has arrived here, and the date. Once it builds its duplicate and sends it on its way, it then explores the planets and moons of the star system and sterilizes every form of life it encounters. Once it finishes, it sends out a new message to the satellites, sterilization complete. Then it moves on to another star. As probes multiply, when they approach a star, they listen for any chatter from orbiting satellites. If there is no chatter, a probe knows no other has been there, so it sets its sights for that star. If, on the other hand, there is chatter, it listens. If there is only the first message, probe number has arrived here, and the date, it will compare the date of arrival to the actual date. If the original probe arrived 10,000 years ago, and there is no follow-up, it's likely that something has happened to it and it has been destroyed. Therefore, the new probe will change the message to its own number and the new date. If the message says that the star system has been sterilized, it will then proceed to change course to a new star. Using this strategy, they will avoid sending a whole bunch of probes to the same star systems. But it doesn't mean they won't miss any. Perhaps the background noise of space is not so background after all. Maybe there is some order to it. Should we listen and see if we can find these repetitive messages? Should we find out if there is some repetitive message coming from around our sun? What date is it?